Have you ever wondered what would happen if the love of your life slipped away? Not because you stopped loving each other, but because someone decided that money was more important than love. Imagine spending years fighting to become the person everyone said you could never be, only to discover that success came too late. Tonight's story is about a poor young man who lost the only woman he ever loved because her wealthy parents believed he would never be good enough. Years later, destiny brought them together again in a place neither of them expected, forcing them to face a question that had haunted them for years. Can true love survive time, wealth, and regret? Before we begin, let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and if you enjoy emotional stories with meaningful endings, don't forget to subscribe. Now, let's begin. Adam Collins was 23 years old when he first met Emily Carter. He wasn't the kind of man people noticed in a crowd. Every morning he woke up before sunrise, put on the same faded blue jacket, and caught 2 buses to a small furniture workshop where he worked 10 hours a day. The pay was barely enough to cover rent for the tiny apartment he shared with his widowed mother. But Adam never complained. He believed that life rewarded those who refused to quit. Every evening, after finishing work, he attended business classes at a nearby college, often arriving tired, covered in sawdust, and carrying old textbooks he had bought second-hand because he couldn't afford new ones. One rainy afternoon, as students hurried across the campus, a young woman accidentally dropped several books on the wet pavement. While everyone else walked past without stopping, Adam immediately knelt down to help her gather them before the pages were ruined. "Thank you," she said with a warm smile that seemed brighter than the sun hidden behind the clouds. "I'm Emily." From that moment, everything changed. Emily wasn't like the other students. She was kind, intelligent, and surprisingly humble, despite coming from one of the wealthiest families in the city. Her father owned hotels, shopping centers, and construction companies worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Yet she preferred quiet cafes over luxury restaurants and meaningful conversations over expensive parties. Over the following months, Adam and Emily became inseparable. They studied together, laughed together, shared cheap sandwiches during lunch breaks, and spent long evenings walking beside the river talking about dreams, family, and the future. Adam dreamed of starting his own company one day. Emily dreamed of living a simple life with someone who loved her for who she was, rather than for her family's fortune. Little by little, friendship turned into love, and before long, they couldn't imagine a future without each other. One autumn evening, while the golden leaves drifted across the quiet riverside, Adam stopped walking and looked into Emily's eyes with a mixture of hope and fear. His hands trembled as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver ring. Nothing expensive, just something he had spent months saving for. "Emily," he said softly, "I can't promise you a mansion, luxury cars, or vacations around the world. Right now, all I can offer is an honest heart, a lifetime of loyalty, and the promise that I'll spend every single day working to give you the life you deserve. Will you marry me?" Tears filled Emily's eyes before she whispered, "Yes." They embraced beneath the falling leaves, believing nothing could separate them. But neither of them knew that the hardest battle of their lives had not yet begun. The next evening, Adam, dressed in the only suit he owned, bought a bouquet of Emily's favorite white roses and walked toward the enormous Carter mansion to ask for her hand in marriage. Completely unaware that before the night was over, his heart would be broken, his future would change forever, and a single cruel decision would set destiny on a path neither of them could ever escape. The following evening, Adam stood outside the Carter mansion with a bouquet of white roses in one hand and the small engagement ring still safely tucked inside his jacket pocket. The estate looked more like a palace than a family home. A long driveway stretched toward a magnificent building, surrounded by perfectly trimmed gardens, marble fountains, and luxury cars parked beneath glowing lights. For a brief moment, Adam questioned whether he truly belonged there. He looked down at his polished shoes, silently hoping no one would notice that they had been repaired more than once. Taking a deep breath, he rang the bell. A housekeeper welcomed him inside and escorted him through an enormous hallway decorated with priceless paintings and crystal chandeliers until they reached the main sitting room. Emily was already there, her face glowing with excitement. But the moment their eyes met, Adam could also see fear hiding behind her smile. She knew exactly how difficult this evening might become. A few seconds later, Charles Carter entered the room with calm, confident steps, followed by his elegant wife, Margaret. They greeted Adam politely, but there was a coldness in their expressions that immediately made him uncomfortable. After everyone sat down, Charles looked directly at Adam and said, "Emily tells us that you wish to marry her. Before we discuss anything else, tell me about yourself." Adam spoke honestly. He explained where he worked, how he attended college every evening after finishing long hours at the workshop, and how he dreamed of building his own company one day. He admitted that he had very little money, but promised that he would spend the rest of his life working hard to give Emily everything she deserved. When he finished speaking, silence filled the room. Charles slowly placed his coffee cup on the table and smiled, not with kindness, but with disbelief. "Young man," he said quietly, "dreams are free. Anyone can have them. My daughter has spent her entire life surrounded by comfort and opportunity. Do you honestly believe that love alone can maintain the lifestyle she has always known?" Adam remained respectful. "Sir, I know I cannot give her that life today, but I believe I can build it. All I'm asking for is a chance." Charles leaned forward and shook his head. "A chance? Marriage is not a gamble. I have spent 30 years building everything my family owns. I will not entrust my daughter's future to a man whose greatest asset is hope." Emily could no longer remain silent. "Dad, I don't care about the money. I love him." Charles turned toward her without raising his voice. "You think you don't care because you've never lived without it. Love feels wonderful when life is easy. Wait until the bills arrive, until children need food, until problems replace romance. Then you'll understand why I refuse to make this mistake." Adam felt every word like a knife, but he refused to argue. He respected Emily's parents, even though they clearly did not respect him. Margaret gently took Emily's hand and said, "Sweetheart, one day you'll thank us. There are many successful men who would be honored to marry you. Don't throw your future away because of emotions that will eventually fade." Emily stood up, tears streaming down her face. "My feelings will never fade." Charles looked back at Adam and spoke the words that would change all of their lives forever. "If you truly love my daughter, then prove it by walking away. Give her the future she deserves, instead of the future you hope to create." The room fell completely silent. Adam looked at Emily, his heart breaking as he saw the desperation in her eyes. Every part of him wanted to fight, to beg, to refuse, but deep inside he realized that forcing Emily to choose between him and her family would only bring her pain. Slowly, he placed the bouquet of white roses on the table. He reached into his pocket, looked at the simple engagement ring one last time, then quietly slipped it back inside without anyone noticing. "Thank you for your honesty," he said calmly. "I hope one day you'll understand that a person's value cannot be measured by the size of their bank account." He turned toward Emily, gently held her hands, and whispered, "No matter what happens, never stop believing in yourself." Emily burst into tears and begged him not to leave, but Adam simply smiled through the pain. "Some battles cannot be won tonight," he said softly. "But I promise you this, I will never stop chasing the future we once dreamed about." Without another word, he walked out of the mansion and disappeared into the cold night. Standing alone beneath the pouring rain, with tears mixing with the water on his face, Adam made the most important promise of his life. One day, he would return, not to seek revenge, not to humiliate the people who had rejected him, but to prove that determination could accomplish what wealth had failed to understand. At that very moment, neither Adam nor Emily realized that their heartbreaking goodbye was only the beginning of a story that destiny would take 10 long years to finish. The morning after leaving the Carter mansion, Adam packed everything he owned into a single backpack. He hugged his mother goodbye, promising that one day he would return and give her the life she deserved. With only a few $100s in his pocket, he boarded a bus to another city, determined to start over. The first few years were brutal. He worked wherever he could. Construction sites during the day, warehouse shifts at night, and weekend delivery jobs just to pay the bills. There were nights when he slept in his small office because he couldn't afford both rent and the equipment he needed for his growing business. More than once, he thought about giving up. Investors rejected him, banks refused to lend him money, and people laughed when he spoke about building a company that could compete with the biggest names in the industry. But every rejection reminded him of the words Emily's father had spoken. "Come back when you have something to offer." Instead of letting those words destroy him, Adam turned them into motivation. He studied successful entrepreneurs, learned from every mistake, and slowly built a furniture business that became known for its exceptional quality. One satisfied customer recommended another. Small contracts became large ones, and within a few years, his company expanded across the country. By the age of 34, Adam Collins had become one of the youngest self-made millionaires in America. Business magazines featured his story on their covers. Television networks invited him for interviews, and people admired him as the perfect example of perseverance. Yet despite all the wealth, luxury homes, expensive cars, and international success, one thing remained unchanged. Every year, on the anniversary of the day he left the Carter mansion, he bought a bouquet of white roses and placed it beside the river where he and Emily had shared their first kiss. His assistants often asked why he never married, and he always answered with the same quiet smile. Because some promises stay alive even when the people who made them are no longer together. While Adam was building the future he had once dreamed about, Emily was living a life that looked perfect from the outside, but felt painfully empty within. Her father never mentioned Adam's name again, as if he had never existed, and little by little, he introduced her to Michael Harrison, the son of another wealthy businessman. Michael was successful, educated, respectful, and generous. He treated Emily with kindness and never gave her a reason to doubt his character. Everyone believed they were the perfect couple. But love cannot be forced, no matter how perfect someone appears. Emily smiled during family dinners, attended elegant parties, and accepted compliments from friends who envied her glamorous life. Yet every night she found herself thinking about a young man who had once walked beside her carrying nothing but hope. Nearly 2 years after Adam left, exhausted by constant pressure from her family and convinced she would never see him again, Emily agreed to marry Michael. Their wedding became one of the biggest social events of the year. Luxury magazines covered the ceremony, famous musicians performed at the reception, and hundreds of influential guests celebrated what many called the marriage of the decade. Everyone applauded as the beautiful couple exchanged vows, but hidden behind Emily's smile was a heart quietly mourning the future she had lost. She learned to be a devoted wife, and over time she became a caring mother to a wonderful little girl who filled her life with joy. She respected her husband deeply and appreciated his kindness, yet a small part of her heart remained frozen in time, still holding on to the memory of the poor young man who had once promised to build a future with nothing more than love and determination. 10 years passed. Adam and Emily never spoke, never wrote to each other, and never crossed paths. Each believed the other had moved on. Then, one autumn evening, fate quietly arranged the meeting neither of them expected. Adam received an invitation to a prestigious charity gala, honoring the country's most influential entrepreneurs for their contributions to education and community development. As the founder of one of the fastest-growing companies in America, he was chosen to receive the evening's highest award. Without realizing it, Emily and her husband received invitations to the very same event. As Adam adjusted his black tuxedo before leaving his hotel, he had no idea that in just a few hours he would come face to face with the woman he had spent 10 years trying and failing to forget. Across the city, Emily stood in front of a mirror wearing an elegant navy blue evening gown while fastening a diamond necklace around her neck. Looking at her reflection, she suddenly felt an unexplained sadness she couldn't understand. She smiled politely when her husband called that it was time to leave, unaware that destiny was about to reopen a chapter of her life she believed had been closed forever.